The ballroom glittered like a den of predators dressed in silk. Elena Whitford stood at the edge of it all, invisible as always, until the Duke's eyes found her across the crowded room. For 5 years she'd been the forgotten wife, the shadow her husband kept locked away while he paraded his mistress on his arm. Tonight, everything would shatter. One dance, one choice. One dangerous man who refused to let her disappear. This is the story of a woman who stopped hiding and became the storm they never saw coming. Stay until the end, hit like, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The chandeliers blazed overhead like 1,000 judging eyes, and Elena Whitford wanted to disappear into the wallpaper. She'd gotten good at it over the years, the art of making herself small. Shoulders curled inward just enough to seem demure but not broken, eyes downcast but not closed, hands folded precisely at her waist, never fidgeting, never drawing attention. She wore a gown the color of fog, expensive but forgettable, chosen specifically because it wouldn't stand out in a room full of peacocks. Her husband hadn't even glanced at her when they arrived. Lord Marcus Whitford was already 3 glasses deep into champagne, his hand resting possessively on the lower back of a woman who wasn't his wife. Lady Catherine Pembroke, the mistress. She wore crimson tonight, of course she did, cut low enough to make the dowagers clutch their pearls and whisper behind their fans. Marcus laughed at something she said, his voice carrying across the marble floors, and Elena felt the familiar tightness in her chest. 5 years of this. 5 years of standing in corners while he touched another woman in public. 5 years of smiling politely when people asked where her husband had gone, knowing full well he was in a private room somewhere with Catherine's lipstick smeared across his collar. 5 years of going home to a cold bed in a cold house, waking up alone, eating breakfast alone, existing alone in a marriage that was supposed to mean something. She used to cry about it. In the beginning, she'd locked herself in the bathroom and sobbed until her ribs ached. She'd begged him to stop, to choose her, to remember the vows he'd made. He'd looked at her like she was a child throwing a tantrum. "You're my wife," he'd said, straightening his cufflinks. "That's a position, Elena, not a relationship. Learn the difference." So she did. She learned to stop asking, learned to stop hoping, learned to survive in a world where she was nothing more than a name on a marriage certificate and a body that produced no heirs. Another failure Marcus reminded her of often. The ballroom was packed tonight. Lord Ashford's annual winter gala always was. Every important family in London showed up to see and be seen, to forge alliances and destroy reputations with carefully placed whispers. The air smelled like expensive perfume and older money, thick enough to choke on. Elena pressed herself closer to the wall, watching the crowd swirl past her like she was a rock in a river. Familiar faces, familiar sneers, familiar pity. Lady Berkshire gave her a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Lord Pembroke, Catherine's husband, the man Marcus was cuckolding publicly, nodded at her with the weary resignation of someone who'd stopped caring years ago. At least they had that in common. "Lady Whitford," Elena blinked, pulling herself out of her thoughts. A woman stood before her, older, jewels dripping from her neck like icicles. Lady Harrington, one of the most vicious gossips in London. "Yes?" Elena's voice came out steady, practiced. "I was just telling Mrs. Albright how lovely your gown is." The smile didn't reach Lady Harrington's eyes. "So, subtle. Translation, boring." "Thank you," Elena said, "because that's what you did. You smiled. You thanked them. You let the daggers slide in without flinching." Lady Harrington leaned in slightly, her perfume overwhelming. "And how is Lord Whitford this evening? I haven't seen him." Liar. Everyone had seen him. He was holding court near the refreshment table with Catherine draped over him like a trophy. "He's well," Elena replied. "Enjoying the company." "I'm sure he is." Lady Harrington's smile sharpened. Such a social man. Mrs. Albright tittered behind her fan, a sound like breaking glass. "Very social indeed. Why, I was just saying to my daughter that Lord Whitford has such refined taste in—" She paused meaningfully. "Conversation." Elena's nails bit into her palms, but her expression didn't change. "If you'll excuse me, of course, dear, do try to enjoy yourself." The words were laced with pity, and somehow that was worse than the cruelty. Elena moved through the crowd like a ghost, weaving between clusters of conversation, avoiding eye contact. She heard her name more than once, always followed by laughter or sympathetic sighs. The forgotten wife, the barren one. Poor thing. She'd heard every variation over the years, and each one still stung like a fresh cut. She found a spot near the terrace doors where the light was dimmer, where she could breathe without someone watching. The cool air from outside helped, even though it made goosebumps rise on her arms. She hadn't worn a shawl. Marcus hated when she covered herself up at events, said it made her look prudish and old. The music swelled. A waltz. Couples flooded the dance floor, spinning in perfect synchronization, diamonds catching the light. Elena watched them and felt nothing. She used to love dancing, used to imagine her wedding would be full of it, her husband's hand in hers, his eyes only on her. Foolish girl. She'd been 19 when she married Marcus. 19, and stupid, and so desperate to escape her father's house that she'd said yes to the first proposal that came. Marcus had been handsome then, charming in that casual way wealthy men were when they wanted something. He'd courted her properly, brought her flowers, told her she was beautiful. The mask had come off 3 days after the wedding. "You'll sleep in the East Wing," he'd said, not even looking at her as he sorted through correspondence at breakfast. "I need my privacy." "But we're married," Elena had said, confused. "Shouldn't we share a bed?" Marcus had laughed, cold and sharp. "Why would I do that? You're here to provide heirs and manage the household, Elena. Everything else is my business, not yours." She'd tried. For the first year, she'd tried everything. Wore the clothes he liked, learned his favorite meals, studied topics he was interested in so they'd have something to discuss. None of it mattered. He came to her bed exactly twice, dutiful, mechanical, devoid of any warmth. And when she didn't conceive immediately, he stopped coming at all. Barren, he'd declared after the second year. Useless. He'd taken Catherine as a mistress 6 months later and never bothered hiding it. "Whitford's looking particularly smug tonight." The voice came from behind her, male, low, edged with something dark. Elena stiffened but didn't turn. "I hadn't noticed," she lied. Liar. Now she turned. The man standing there was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black like he'd come to a funeral instead of a ball. His face was all sharp angles and cold calculation, the kind of face that made people step back without realizing why. Dark hair swept back from his forehead, a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. Old, faded, but visible. His eyes were the color of slate before a storm. She recognized him immediately. Everyone did. Duke Ronan Hale, the most dangerous man in England if the rumors were true. And the rumors were always true. He didn't smile, didn't soften his expression to put her at ease. He just looked at her with eyes that seemed to see straight through the careful mask she wore. Elena's heart kicked against her ribs. She'd never spoken to the Duke before, had seen him at events, always standing apart from the crowd, watching everything like a predator deciding which prey to take down. Men feared him. Women whispered about him. He had a reputation for destroying anyone who crossed him, financially, socially, sometimes literally. There were stories about duels, about men who challenged him and ended up ruined or dead. And now he was talking to her. "Your Grace," Elena said quietly, dipping into a shallow curtsy. "Lady Whitford." He didn't bow. "You're standing in the shadows again." Her breath caught. Again. As if he'd been watching. As if he'd noticed. "I prefer it here," she said carefully. "I know." He stepped closer, and she caught the scent of smoke and something sharp. Whiskey, maybe. "But you shouldn't." Elena's heart was beating too fast. This was dangerous. Being seen talking to the Duke alone near the terrace, people would notice. They always noticed. "I should rejoin your husband?" Ronan's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. "The one who's currently got his tongue halfway down Lady Pembroke's throat in the conservatory?" The words hit like a slap. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Because he said it out loud, the thing everyone knew but no one acknowledged. "That's fact," Ronan interrupted, "not speculation. I saw them on my way in." She had her hand on his cock through his trousers, very discreet. Elena's face burned. She wanted to defend Marcus, to say something cutting and dignified, but the words stuck in her throat. What was there to say? He wasn't wrong. Why are you telling me this? She asked instead. Ronan tilted his head, studying her. Because you deserve to know what everyone else already does. I know, Elena said, and hated how small her voice sounded. I've always known. Then why are you still here? The question landed like a blade between her ribs. Why was she here? Why did she keep coming to these events, kept playing the dutiful wife, kept pretending? Because she had nowhere else to go. Because Marcus controlled everything, her money, her home, her reputation. Because leaving meant scandal, meant ruin, meant becoming the villain in a story where she was already the punchline. I don't expect you to understand, Elena said stiffly. Try me. She met his eyes then, really met them, and something in her chest cracked. He was looking at her like she mattered, like she was real, and she hadn't felt real in so long. Because I have no choice, she said. Is that what you wanted to hear? No. Ronan's voice dropped. I wanted to hear you say you're done. Well, I'm not. Elena stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. And I don't need your pity, Your Grace. Good, because I'm not offering it. The music changed. Another waltz. Ronan extended his hand. Dance with me. Elena stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Excuse me? You heard me. I can't. You can. His hand remained outstretched, steady. One dance. That's all I'm asking. Do you have any idea what that would... People will talk. Marcus will... Let them. Ronan's expression didn't change. Let him. Elena's pulse hammered in her ears. This was insane. Dancing with the Duke publicly while her husband was in the next room with his mistress. It was social suicide. It was a declaration. It was asking for punishment she couldn't afford. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this? Ronan's expression softened just slightly, enough to make her chest ache. Because you've been invisible long enough, Elena, and I'm tired of watching you disappear. Her name. He'd used her name, not her title, and it sounded like a promise. Her hand moved before her mind caught up, fingers brushing against his palm. His grip was firm, warm, calloused in a way that surprised her. Men like him didn't have calluses. They had servants for everything, but his hands told a different story. When he led her onto the dance floor, the room seemed to tilt. Whispers erupted immediately. Elena heard them like distant thunder, shocked gasps, hurried murmurs, the rustle of fans snapping open. She felt eyes on her from every direction, felt the weight of 100 judgments settling on her shoulders. Is that the Duke? With Lady Whitford? But her husband is right there with scandal, absolute scandal. And then Ronan's hand settled on her waist, and everything else faded. Look at me, he said quietly, not them. She did. His eyes were darker up close, flecked with something gold. He moved with absolute confidence, guiding her through the steps like they'd done this 1,000 times. She stumbled once, nerves getting the better of her, but he steadied her without comment. You're shaking, he observed. I'm terrified, she admitted. Good. That means you're alive. They turned, and Elena caught sight of Marcus across the room. He'd emerged from the conservatory, Catherine still clinging to his arm, and his face had gone white with fury. He was staring directly at her, jaw clenched, eyes blazing with the kind of rage that meant consequences. Elena's instinct was to look away, to shrink, to apologize with her body language and hope he'd forgive her later. Instead, she lifted her chin and kept dancing. Ronan's mouth curved into something that might have been approval. There she is. Yes. This is going to make everything worse, Elena said, but she didn't stop moving. It's going to make everything different, Ronan corrected. There's a distinction. He's going to punish me for this. The words came out before she could stop them. You don't know what he's like when we're alone. Something dangerous flashed in Ronan's eyes. Tell me. Why? So you can feel sorry for me? No, so I know exactly how to destroy him. Elena's breath hitched. The way he said it, calm, certain, like he was discussing the weather, sent ice down her spine. I don't need you to fight my battles, she said. I know you don't. Ronan spun her, bringing her closer. But I'm going to anyway. You don't even know me. I know enough. His voice was low, meant only for her. I know. You've been dying slowly in that house for 5 years. I know you've convinced yourself you deserve it. I know you're stronger than anyone in this room, including your bastard husband, but you've forgotten how to use it. You're wrong. Am I? Ronan's grip tightened slightly on her waist. Then prove it. Stop hiding. Stop apologizing. Stop letting him win. The music swelled. They spun past Lady Harrington, whose mouth was hanging open in shock, past the dowagers who clutched their pearls like shields, past Catherine, whose perfect face had twisted into something ugly and jealous, and past Marcus, who looked ready to commit murder on a ballroom floor. He'll make me regret this, Elena whispered. Only if you let him. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's brutal. It's going to hurt, and it's going to cost you. Ronan's eyes burned into hers. But staying where you are? That's killing you, and I refuse to watch it happen anymore. Why do you care? Elena's voice broke slightly. Why does any of this matter to you? For a moment, Ronan didn't answer. They moved in perfect synchronization, the rest of the room fading to a blur of color and sound. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. Because I've seen what happens when people like Marcus are allowed to keep breaking things, and I'm done letting it happen. There was something in his tone, something personal and painful, but before Elena could ask, the music ended. Ronan didn't release her immediately. He held her there, in the center of the room, with everyone watching. The silence was deafening. Thank you for the dance, Lady Whitford, he said, loud enough for others to hear. Thank you, Your Grace, Elena replied, her voice steadier than she felt. He bowed then, a real bow, the kind reserved for equals, and when he straightened, his eyes held a challenge. This doesn't end here, he said, too quiet for anyone else to catch. You know that, don't you? Elena's throat was tight. I know. Good. Ronan stepped back. Then I'll see you soon. He walked away, cutting through the crowd like it didn't exist, and Elena stood there alone, the center of attention for the first time in 5 years. The whispers exploded like fireworks. Did you see? The audacity. Poor Lord Whitford, how humiliating. She's ruined herself completely. The Duke, though, why would he? Elena couldn't move. Her legs felt like water, her heart racing so fast she thought it might burst. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. She'd danced with Ronan Hale in front of everyone, and there was no taking it back. And then Marcus was moving. He crossed the floor in long strides, his face a mask of controlled rage. Catherine trailed behind him, trying to keep up in her ridiculous heels, her expression torn between vindictive satisfaction and uncertainty. People scattered out of his way, suddenly very interested in their champagne glasses. We're leaving, Marcus said when he reached her. Not a question. An order. Marcus? Now. His hand clamped around her arm tight enough to bruise. Elena's first instinct was to comply, to follow him out quietly, to smooth this over before it got worse. She'd done it 100 times before, apologized for things that weren't her fault, made herself smaller so he could feel bigger. But then she thought about Ronan's words. You've been invisible long enough. Let go of me, she said. Marcus's grip tightened. Don't make a scene, Elena. Solcham. Make a scene, Elena. You made the scene. Her voice was low but steady. You brought your mistress to a society ball. You humiliated me in front of everyone. So don't you dare tell me not to make a scene. Something flashed in Marcus's eyes. Surprise, maybe, that she was pushing back. Around them, people had stopped pretending not to listen. They were watching openly now, hungry for the spectacle. Marcus leaned in close, his breath hot against her ear, his fingers digging into her arm hard enough to make her wince. We will discuss this at home, he hissed, and you will regret tonight. I promise you that. There was a threat in those words that went beyond social consequences. Elena knew that tone, knew what it meant. Her arm would be black and blue tomorrow. Maybe worse. But she didn't back down. "I already regret tonight," she said quietly. "I regret every night I've spent as your wife." Marcus's face went purple. For a second she thought he might hit her right there in front of everyone. His hand trembled against her arm, rage barely contained. Then Catherine touched his shoulder. "Darling, people are staring. Perhaps we should—" "Shut up," Marcus snapped, not even looking at her. Catherine flinched, her confident mask cracking. Elena almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But Catherine had made her choices too. Marcus released Elena's arm and stormed toward the exit, his footsteps echoing on the marble. Catherine scurried after him like a loyal dog, shooting Elena a venomous glare as she passed. Elena stood there, trembling, her arm throbbing where he'd grabbed her. Around her the whispers grew louder. "Well, I never—" Completely inappropriate. What was she thinking? The Duke must have been toying with her. Serves her right, honestly, dancing with him like that. Poor thing, she must be humiliated. Elena closed her eyes and breathed. In, out, in, out. When she opened them again, she caught sight of Ronan near the terrace doors. He hadn't left. He'd been watching the entire exchange, and his expression was cold enough to freeze blood. Their eyes met across the room. He gave her a single nod. Not pity, not sympathy. Acknowledgement. And somehow, that was enough. Elena turned and walked toward the exit, head high, ignoring every stare and whisper. Her hands were still shaking, her heart still racing, but she didn't run. She didn't hide. She walked. The entrance hall was cooler, less crowded. A few servants moved about, fetching cloaks and calling carriages. Elena waited by the door, her arms wrapped around herself, trying to stop shaking. "Lady Whitford." She turned. Lord Pembroke stood there, Catherine's husband, looking older than his years. He had kind eyes, tired eyes. "Yes, my lord?" He didn't say anything for a moment, just looked at her with something that might have been understanding. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I thought you looked quite lovely dancing tonight, more alive than I've seen you in years." Elena's throat tightened. "Thank you." He nodded and walked away. And Elena wondered if he was going home to an empty house too, if he'd also learned to survive in a marriage that was really just a contract. The carriage arrived. Marcus was already inside, staring out the window with his jaw clenched. Elena climbed in and sat as far from him as possible, which wasn't far. The space was tight, suffocating. The ride home was silent. Marcus didn't look at her, didn't speak, but she could feel his rage radiating off him in waves. Every bump in the road made her tense, waiting for him to explode. But he stayed silent. That was worse somehow. The silence meant he was planning, thinking, deciding exactly how to punish her for tonight's transgression. When they arrived at Whitford Manor, Marcus climbed out first and headed straight for his study without a word. Elena followed slowly, her body heavy with exhaustion and dread. She made it to her bedroom, her separate bedroom, because of course they didn't share, and closed the door. Locked it. Then she sank onto the edge of the bed and let out a shaky breath. Her arm still hurt where Marcus had grabbed her. She pushed up her sleeve and saw the angry red marks already forming into bruises. Perfect fingerprints. His fingerprints. Not the first time. Wouldn't be the last. Elena stared at them for a long moment, then pulled her sleeve back down. She should change out of her gown, wash her face, prepare for bed. But she couldn't move. She just sat there, replaying the evening in her mind. The dance. Ronan's hands on her. The way everyone had stared. Marcus's face when he saw her. "You've been invisible long enough?" Had she been invisible? Or had she been hiding? There was a difference, she realized. Being invisible meant no one saw you. Hiding meant you didn't let them. She'd been hiding. For 5 years she'd been hiding from the humiliation, the pain, the truth of what her life had become. She told herself she was surviving, but really she was just disappearing bit by bit until there was almost nothing left. A knock at the door made her jump. "Elena," Marcus's voice, calm now, too calm. She didn't answer. "Open the door." "No." A pause, then, "I will break it down." He would. She knew he would. Elena stood and unlocked the door but didn't open it. She stepped back, waiting. Marcus pushed it open slowly. He'd taken off his jacket, loosened his cravat. He looked almost casual, if not for the coldness in his eyes. "We need to talk," he said. "I'm tired." "I don't care." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Sit down." Elena didn't sit. She stood her ground even though every instinct screamed at her to comply. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "I said sit, and I said I'm tired." He moved faster than she expected. One moment he was across the room, the next his hand was wrapped around her throat, not squeezing but holding, a warning. "You embarrass me tonight," he said softly. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Elena's pulse pounded in her ears, but she kept her voice steady. "I danced with someone, that's all. You danced with the Duke of Hale, in front of everyone, while I was there." His grip tightened slightly. "You made me look weak. You made yourself look weak when you brought your whore to a society event." The slap came fast, cracking across her cheek hard enough to make her stumble. Elena's vision blurred, her face exploding in pain. "Don't you ever speak to me like that again," Marcus hissed. "You are my wife. You do what I say, when I say it. And if I want to bring Catherine to every event in London, you will smile and keep your mouth shut. Do you understand?" Elena's cheek was on fire, tears stinging her eyes, but she didn't cry. She wouldn't give him that. "Do you understand?" Marcus repeated, louder. "Yes," she whispered. "Good." He released her, stepping back. "You're confined to the house until further notice. No visits, no outings, no correspondence. And if I ever see you near the Duke again, I will make you regret it in ways you can't imagine." He left, slamming the door behind him. Elena stood there, shaking, her hand pressed to her burning cheek. She walked to the mirror and looked at herself. Her face was already swelling, a red handprint visible against her pale skin. This was her life. This was what she'd accepted for 5 years. She thought about Ronan's words. Stop letting him win. But how? How did you fight someone who controlled everything? Someone who could hurt you with no consequences? Someone who had the law, society, and power all on his side? Elena sank to the floor, her back against the bed, and finally let the tears come. They fell silently, hot tracks down her bruised face. She'd been so stupid tonight. Dancing with Ronan had been reckless, dangerous. And for what? A moment of feeling real? A brief spark of defiance? It wasn't worth this. Except she'd felt alive for the first time in years. Except Ronan had looked at her like she mattered. Except standing in the center of that ballroom, refusing to shrink, had felt like finally breathing after drowning. Maybe it had been worth it. Elena wiped her eyes and stood. She walked to her writing desk and pulled out a piece of paper. Her hands were still shaking, but she wrote anyway. "I need help." 3 words. That's all she managed before her courage failed. She folded the paper and tucked it into her jewelry box, hidden beneath her mother's pearls. She didn't know if she'd ever send it. Didn't know who she'd send it to. But writing it felt like something, like a possibility. Like maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to disappear completely. Outside her window, London glittered in the darkness, a city full of secrets and power plays and people destroying each other with smiles. Elena had been a victim of that world for too long, a pawn in someone else's game, but pawns could become queens. She just had to survive long enough to learn how. And something told her the Duke was going to teach her, whether she was ready or not. 3 days passed before Elena left her room, not because Marcus had locked her in, he hadn't needed to. The threat was enough. Stay inside. Stay quiet. Stay invisible. She'd heard his footsteps in the hallway at night, pacing outside her door like a guard, making sure she understood the boundaries of her cage. On the 4th morning, she woke to silence. No footsteps. No sounds of Marcus moving through the house. Elena dressed slowly, her fingers fumbling with the buttons on her dress. The bruises on her arm had faded to ugly yellow-green splotches. The handprint on her face had disappeared, but she could still feel it sometimes. Phantom pain that made her flinch when she caught her reflection. She opened her door carefully, half expecting Marcus to be waiting in the hallway. Empty. Elena made her way downstairs, each step measured and quiet. The house felt different in the daylight, larger, colder, more like a mausoleum than a home. Portraits of dead Whitfords stared down at her from the walls. their painted eyes following her progress. She found Mrs. Crawford in the kitchen, the housekeeper who'd been with the family for 20 years. The older woman looked up from her tea, and her expression tightened. "Lady Whitford, I didn't expect to see you up. Where's Lord Whitford?" "Out. Left early this morning with Lady Pembroke." Mrs. Crawford's tone was carefully neutral, but Elena caught the flicker of disapproval in her eyes. "Said he wouldn't be back until late." Of course, business as usual. Elena nodded and turned to leave. "My lady?" Elena stopped. Mrs. Crawford was watching her with an expression that might have been concern. "There's a letter for you. Came by private messenger yesterday. I put it in the drawing room." Elena's heart kicked. "A letter?" "Sealed with a ducal crest." Mrs. Crawford's voice dropped. "I didn't tell Lord Whitford." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Mrs. Crawford knew. Of course she knew. Servants always knew everything. "Thank you," Elena whispered. She found the letter exactly where Mrs. Crawford had said, sitting on the side table like a small bomb. The seal was unmistakable, the Hale family crest pressed into deep blue wax. Elena picked it up with shaking hands and broke the seal. The handwriting was sharp, precise. "Lady Whitford, I trust you are well. Though I suspect that's a generous assumption given the company you keep. I'm hosting a small gathering at my estate this Saturday evening. Nothing formal, just cards, conversation, and people who know how to behave themselves. Your presence would be appreciated. If your circumstances prevent attendance, send word and I will make alternative arrangements." Hale Elena read it 3 times, her pulse racing. He was giving her an out. She could refuse, send a polite decline, and stay safely locked in her gilded prison. Marcus would never know. Except Mrs. Crawford knew. And if Mrs. Crawford knew, other servants might know. And if servants knew, eventually Marcus would know. And if Marcus knew Ronan had written to her. Elena folded the letter and tucked it into her pocket. She needed to think, needed to decide if she was brave enough to make things worse. Because they would get worse. That was the only certainty. The library was quiet, dusty afternoon light filtering through tall windows. Elena sank into one of the leather chairs and pulled out the letter again, staring at Ronan's handwriting. "If your circumstances prevent attendance, send word and I will make alternative arrangements." What did that mean? Would he come here? That would be disaster. Marcus would lose his mind completely. But the gathering? Saturday evening, 3 days away. Marcus usually went to his club on Saturdays, stayed out until the early hours drinking and gambling, if she timed it right, if she was careful. "Planning your escape?" Elena's head snapped up. Catherine stood in the doorway, wearing a dress that probably cost more than most families made in a year. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. "I didn't realize you were here," Elena said carefully. "Obviously." Catherine glided into the room, her movements calculated for maximum effect. "Marcus asked me to check on you, make sure you hadn't done anything rash." "How thoughtful." "He's worried, you know, after your little display at the ball." Catherine perched on the edge of the desk, too close, invading space she had no right to. "Dancing with the Duke, very dramatic, very stupid." Elena's fingers tightened on the letter in her pocket. "Did you need something, Lady Pembroke?" "I need you to understand something." Catherine's voice dropped, losing its playful edge. "Marcus is mine." "He's been mine for 3 years, and he'll continue to be mine long after you're forgotten. You're just the legal inconvenience he has to keep around." "Then why are you here?" Elena met her eyes. "If I'm so irrelevant, why bother?" Something flickered in Catherine's expression. Uncertainty, maybe, or fear. "Because you're making him look weak," Catherine said. "The Duke paying attention to you, people whispering about how Marcus can't control his own wife, it reflects badly on him. And when Marcus looks bad, I suffer for it." "You poor thing." Catherine's hand moved fast, reaching for Elena's pocket where the letter was hidden. Elena jerked back, but Catherine was quicker, snatching the folded paper. "Give that back." "Oh, this is interesting." Catherine unfolded the letter, her eyes scanning the contents. Her smile widened. "A private invitation from the Duke. Does Marcus know about this?" Elena's stomach dropped. It's nothing, just what? A friendly correspondence? Catherine laughed. You're even more naive than I thought. The Duke doesn't do friendly, Elena. He destroys things. And right now he's decided to destroy your husband by using you. That's not, isn't it? Catherine tucked the letter into her bodice. I'm keeping this. Insurance, let's call it. In case you get any ideas about actually attending. You can't. I can do whatever I want. Catherine stood, smoothing her skirts. Because unlike you, I know how this world works. Power isn't about being legally married or morally right. It's about being necessary. And I'm necessary to Marcus in ways you've never been. She swept out of the library, leaving Elena shaking with rage and fear. The letter was gone. Catherine had it, which meant Marcus would have it soon, and then Elena pressed her hands to her face, trying to think through the panic. She needed to leave, needed to get out of this house before Catherine showed Marcus the letter. But where would she go? She had no money of her own, no family who would take her in. Her father had died 2 years ago, and her mother had remarried and moved to Scotland, making it clear Elena was no longer her concern. She was trapped. Unless... Elena stood abruptly and left the library, climbing the stairs to her room. She locked the door and went straight to her jewelry box, pulling out the pearls, the emeralds, the diamond bracelet Marcus had given her on their wedding day. These were hers. Legally, technically, hers. She could sell them. Get enough money to what? Rent a room somewhere? Live as a scandalous separated wife with no prospects? She was putting the jewelry back when she heard the shouting. Marcus was home, and he was furious. Elena's hands froze. She could hear him downstairs, his voice echoing through the house, Catherine's higher pitch responding. They were arguing. About what? She couldn't tell, but it was getting louder. Then footsteps on the stairs. Fast. Angry. Elena backed away from the door just as it exploded inward, the lock tearing from the wood. Marcus stood in the doorway, the letter clutched in his fist, his face purple with rage. You scheming little whore! I didn't respond to it, Elena said quickly, hands up. I wasn't going to. You expect me to believe that? Marcus advanced on her. The Duke writes to you, invites you to his estate, and you just... What? We're going to politely decline? Yes! Liar! He grabbed her arm, the same one he'd bruised before, and Elena cried out. You've been planning this, planning to humiliate me further, to run to him. I haven't been planning anything. Then explain this. He shoved the letter in her face. Explain why the most dangerous man in England is writing to my wife. I don't know. I didn't ask him to... Marcus's fist caught her in the stomach, driving the air from her lungs. Elena collapsed, gasping, pain exploding through her middle. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only curl into herself and wait for the next blow. It didn't come. Instead, Marcus crouched beside her, his voice cold and controlled again. You will write to the Duke, he said. You will tell him you're not interested in his attentions. You will make it clear that you are my wife and you have no desire for contact with him. Do you understand? Elena couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but nod. Good. Marcus stood. You have 1 hour. I'll be waiting in my study for the letter. And Elena? He paused at the door. If I find out you've tried to contact him again, or if he contacts you, I will make you regret it in ways that will make tonight seem gentle. He left. Elena lay on the floor, tears streaming down her face, her stomach on fire. She could hear Catherine in the hallway, her voice carrying. Was that necessary, darling? She's already terrified. Stay out of this. I'm just saying, if you damage her too badly, people will notice. I said stay out of it! Their voices faded as they moved away. Elena forced herself to sit up, every movement agony. She needed to write the letter, needed to do what Marcus said before he came back and finished what he started. But her hands were shaking too badly to hold a pen. She sat there for long minutes, trying to breathe through the pain, trying to think. This was it. This was her life. She could write the letter, send Ronan away, and accept that this was all she'd ever have. Or she could do something crazy. Elena pulled herself up using the bed frame, her whole body screaming in protest. She found paper and pen, sat at her writing desk, and began to write. Not to Ronan, to herself. I, Elena Margaret Whitford, being of sound mind, do hereby document the following. My husband, Lord Marcus Whitford, has physically assaulted me on this date. This is not the first time. I have bruises on my arm from 3 days prior and injuries to my abdomen from tonight. He has confined me to our home, forbidden me from seeing friends or family, and threatened me with further violence if I attempt to contact the Duke of Hale. Her hand cramped, but she kept writing, documenting everything, every hit, every threat, every humiliation from the past 5 years. She wrote until her hand ached and the pages piled up, evidence that might mean nothing but felt like something. When she was done, she hid the pages in the hollow bottom of her jewelry box, a secret compartment her mother had shown her years ago. Then she wrote the letter Marcus wanted. Your Grace, I appreciate your kind invitation, but I must respectfully decline. My circumstances do not permit social engagements at this time. I wish you well. Lady Whitford Cold. Formal. Exactly what Marcus would expect. She sealed it and brought it downstairs to his study, knocking softly. Come in. Marcus was at his desk, a glass of brandy in his hand. He looked calmer now, almost normal, which was somehow worse than the rage. The letter, Elena said quietly, holding it out. He took it, broke the seal, and read. His expression didn't change. Good. I'll have it sent in the morning. He set it aside. Sit down. Elena hesitated. I said sit. She sat in the chair across from his desk, hands folded in her lap, trying not to show how much pain she was in. Marcus studied her for a long moment. You know I don't enjoy this, he said finally. Disciplining you, but you force my hand. Elena said nothing. If you would just behave, if you would accept your role, none of this would be necessary. He sipped his brandy. I give you everything, a home, a title, security. All I ask in return is obedience. Is that so much? No, Elena whispered. Then why do you persist in defying me? Because I'm suffocating. Because I'd rather die than spend another 5 years like this. Because one man looked at me like I mattered, and it broke something open inside me that I can't close again. I don't know, she said instead. Marcus sighed like she was a disappointing child. Go to bed, Elena. We'll speak no more of this. She left, climbing the stairs slowly, each step a reminder of where his fist had connected. In her room, she locked what remained of the door and sank onto the bed. The letter was gone. Sent. By tomorrow, Ronan would receive her refusal, and that would be the end of it. He'd move on, forget about the broken woman he danced with once, and Elena would go back to being invisible. Safe. Alone. Dying slowly. She must have fallen asleep at some point because she woke to darkness and the sound of something hitting her window. Tap, tap, tap. Elena sat up, wincing at the pain in her stomach. She went to the window and looked down. A figure stood in the garden below, silhouetted against the moonlight. Ronan. Elena's heart stopped. What was he doing here? If Marcus saw him, if anyone saw him. She opened the window, the cold night air rushing in. Are you insane? She hissed down at him. Frequently. His voice carried up clearly. Come down. I can't. You can. Or I can come up. Your choice. But I'm not leaving without talking to you. Elena glanced at her door. The house was silent. Marcus was either asleep or out. She couldn't tell which. Catherine had left hours ago. This was insane. This was dangerous. She was climbing out the window before she'd fully decided to do it. The trellis was old but sturdy, covered in dead ivy. Elena climbed down carefully, her stomach screaming in protest with every movement. Halfway down, her foot slipped and she gasped. Ronan was there instantly, steadying her, his hands on her waist. I've got you, he said quietly. When her feet touched the ground, she stumbled, and he caught her. That's when he felt her wince, saw the way she held herself carefully. He hurt you. Not a question, a statement. It's nothing. Ronan's hand went to her chin, tilting her face to the moonlight. Whatever he saw there made his expression go cold and deadly. Where else? It doesn't matter, Elena. Where else? She pulled away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. Why are you here? You got my letter. I said I couldn't. That letter was written under duress. Ronan's voice was hard. I could tell from the handwriting alone. Too shaky, too careful. Not your natural style. You don't know my natural style. I know enough. He stepped closer. I know you're terrified. I know he's threatened you. And I know you're standing in a freezing garden in the middle of the night because part of you hoped I'd come anyway. Elena's throat tightened. He was right. She had hoped. Even as she'd written that cold refusal, even as she'd sealed it and handed it to Marcus, part of her had hoped Ronan would see through it. I can't do this, she whispered. Whatever you think this is, whatever you want from me, I can't. He'll kill me. He's killing you already. Ronan's hand came up to cup her face, gentle despite the anger in his voice. Slowly. Do you think I can't see it? You're disappearing, Elena. In another year there will be nothing left. Then let me disappear in peace. No. You don't get to decide. Well, you're right, I don't. Ronan's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. But you do. So decide right now. Do you want to live like this for the rest of your life, or do you want to fight back? Fighting back will destroy me. Staying will destroy you. His eyes burned into hers. At least if you fight, you'll go down swinging instead of fading away. Elena's eyes stung with tears. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's brutal. But I can help you. I have resources, lawyers, connections. I can protect you. Why? The question came out broken. Why would you do this for me? Ronan was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because 5 years ago, I watched my sister marry a man like Marcus. I watched him break her piece by piece, and when she finally found the courage to leave, he killed her rather than let her go. Elena's breath caught. Ronan, I'm not losing someone else to a bastard who thinks owning a woman gives him the right to destroy her. His hand dropped from her face. So yes, I'll help you. I'll move heaven and hell to help you. But you have to make the choice. The garden was silent except for the wind in the bare trees. Elena stood there, shaking, staring at this dangerous man who'd just offered her a lifeline that might be a noose. If I do this, she said slowly, if I fight back, he'll retaliate. He'll make it worse. Yes. He could ruin me completely. He could try. I could lose everything. You could. Ronan stepped closer. Or you could win. You could take everything from him instead. His money, his power, his reputation. You could burn his whole world down and walk away free. Elena's heart was pounding. This was crazy. This was suicide. This was the first real choice she'd made in 5 years. How? She whispered. How do we do it? Ronan's smile was sharp and cold. We start by documenting everything. Every bruise, every threat, every witness who's seen him with Catherine. Then we build a case so airtight that when we move, he won't see it coming until it's too late. He controls the money, the property, everything. For now. Ronan pulled a small card from his pocket and pressed it into her hand. This is my solicitor. His office is on Baker Street. Tomorrow, you tell your husband you're going to visit a dress shop. Instead, you go to this address. You tell him everything. He'll know what to do. Marcus will find out. Maybe, but by then we'll already be 3 steps ahead. Ronan's hand covered hers, warm and steady. Trust me, Elena. I've destroyed bigger men than your husband. This is what I do. Elena looked down at the card in her hand. This was it. The point of no return. If she went to that solicitor, if she started this process, there was no going back. Okay, she said, and the word felt like jumping off a cliff. Okay, I'll do it. Ronan's expression softened just slightly. Good. Now get back inside before someone notices you're gone. Elena nodded and turned to the trellis. She'd made it halfway up when Ronan's voice stopped her. Elena? She looked down. You're stronger than he's made you believe, Ronan said quietly. Remember that when things get hard, because they will get hard before they get better. I know. She climbed the rest of the way, slipped back through her window, and closed it behind her. When she looked down at the garden, Ronan was gone. vanished into the shadows like he'd never been there at all. Elena stood there in the darkness, her heart racing, the solicitor's card clutched in her hand. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, she'd start fighting back. And if Marcus destroyed her in the process, at least she'd go down on her own terms. The card felt like a weapon, like hope, like danger. Elena hid it in her jewelry box next to the pages she'd written, evidence and escape plans tangled together. Then she climbed into bed and waited for morning, knowing that sleep wouldn't come, knowing that the woman who woke up tomorrow would be different from the one who'd climbed out that window, knowing that there was no going back now. Morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Elena dressed carefully, choosing a high-necked gown that covered the bruises on her arms. Her stomach still ached where Marcus had hit her, but she moved through the pain, methodical and focused. The solicitor's card was tucked into her glove, pressed against her palm like a talisman. She found Marcus at breakfast, reading the paper with Catherine draped across the chair beside him. Neither looked up when Elena entered. "I need to go out today," Elena said, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. Marcus lowered the paper slowly. "Excuse me?" "The dressmaker. I have an appointment." The lie came easier than she expected. "My winter wardrobe needs updating. Cancel it." "I can't. It's been scheduled for weeks." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You're not leaving this house." "People will notice if I cancel," Elena said, keeping her tone reasonable. "Lady Harrington asked about my gown at the last event. If I don't show up to the dressmaker, she'll assume something is wrong. There will be talk." She watched him calculate, weighing his need for control against his fear of gossip. Catherine touched his arm. "Let her go, darling. What harm can she do at a dress shop?" Marcus shot Catherine a look that could have melted steel, but after a long moment, he nodded. "Fine, but Thomas drives you, and he waits outside the entire time. You don't go anywhere else. Understood?" "Understood." Elena left before he could change his mind. The carriage ride felt eternal. Thomas, Marcus's driver and occasional spy, kept glancing back at her through the small window. Elena stared out at London passing by, gray and cold under heavy clouds. When they reached the shopping district, Elena had Thomas stop outside Madame Laurent's dress shop, a real appointment she'd made weeks ago and forgotten about. Perfect cover. "I'll be an hour," she told Thomas. He grunted, already pulling out a flask. Inside, Madame Laurent greeted her with the practiced smile of someone who knew exactly how much Elena's marriage was worth. "Lady Whitford, how lovely. Shall we begin with the winter collection?" "Actually, I need to step out for a moment. A friend's shop just 2 streets over. I'll be back within the hour." Madame Laurent's smile didn't waver, but her eyes sharpened with curiosity. "Of course, my lady. Take your time." Elena slipped out the back entrance, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Baker Street was 6 blocks away. She walked quickly, head down, praying no one would recognize her. The solicitor's office was tucked between a bookshop and a tailor, easy to miss if you weren't looking. The sign read J. Morrison, Esquire, in faded gold letters. Elena hesitated at the door. Once she walked through, there was no pretending anymore, no going back to the safety of ignorance. She walked through. The interior was dim, smelling of old paper and tobacco. A clerk looked up from his desk. "May I help you?" "I need to see Mr. Morrison. The Duke of Hale sent me." The clerk's expression changed immediately. "One moment." He disappeared through a door and returned seconds later with a man in his 50s, gray-haired and sharp-eyed. "Lady Whitford, I presume." Morrison's handshake was firm. "Please, come in. We have much to discuss." His office was cramped but organized, every surface covered with files and law books. Morrison gestured to a chair, and Elena sat, her hands trembling in her lap. "The Duke contacted me last night," Morrison said without preamble. "Gave me the broad strokes. Your husband is Lord Marcus Whitford. You've been married 5 years, and he's been physically abusive throughout." Elena flinched at hearing it stated so plainly. "I need you to tell me everything," Morrison continued, pulling out paper and pen. "Every incident you can remember. Dates, if you have them. Witnesses, if there were any. The more detail, the better." So Elena talked. She told him about the separate bedrooms from the first week. The mistress paraded publicly. The times Marcus had hit her, she counted 7 separate incidents over 5 years, though there might have been more she'd blocked out. The threats, the isolation, the way he controlled every penny she spent, every person she saw. Morrison wrote it all down, his expression never changing. "Do you have any documentation?" he asked when she finished. "Letters, diary entries, anything in writing?" Elena hesitated. "I started writing things down last night. It's hidden at the house." "Get it to me as soon as you can. We'll need it." Morrison set down his pen. "Now, the difficult part. Your husband controls all marital assets, correct? Everything. The house, the money, even my clothes technically belong to him. Standard practice, unfortunately, but there are ways around it." Morrison leaned back in his chair. "The Duke has agreed to fund your legal fees and provide housing if needed. That removes your husband's primary leverage." Elena's throat tightened. "Why is he doing this?" "You'd have to ask him. But I've worked with the Duke before. He doesn't make empty gestures. If he's backing you, he's serious." "What happens next?" "We build an ironclad case for legal separation on grounds of cruelty. We document everything, gather witnesses, and present it to the courts. If we're lucky, we can also prove infidelity with Lady Pembroke, which strengthens your position." "Marcus will fight this," Elena said. "He'll destroy me before letting me leave." "He'll try." Morrison's smile was thin. "But the Duke has already started pulling threads. Your husband has debts, Lady Whitford. Significant ones. Gambling debts, mostly, owed to some very dangerous people. The Duke has been quietly buying up those debts." Elena stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means when the time comes, the Duke will own your husband's leash, and he'll pull it hard enough to break his neck." The casual violence of the statement made Elena shiver. "How long?" she asked. "How long until we can move?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. We need to be thorough. One mistake, and he'll use it against you." Morrison's expression softened slightly. "I know it's hard, but you need to go home and act like nothing has changed. Can you do that?" Elena thought about climbing back into the cage, smiling at Marcus, pretending everything was fine while building a bomb underneath him. "Yes," she said, "I can do that." She left the office with Morrison's card and a date for their next meeting. The walk back to Madame Laurent's felt longer, her legs heavy with the weight of what she'd just set in motion. Madame Laurent was waiting with fabric samples spread across every surface. "Your friend's shop was satisfactory?" The question was delicate, probing. "Very." Elena managed a smile. "Now, about those winter gowns." They spent 40 minutes discussing cuts and colors Elena didn't care about. She ordered 3 dresses she'd probably never wear, paid with Marcus's account, and left with Thomas none the wiser. The carriage ride home felt different. The London streets looked sharper, clearer. Elena watched people going about their lives, merchants hawking goods, children playing in alleys, women hurrying with market baskets, and felt something shift inside her. She was going to join them, the living, the free. She just had to survive long enough to get there. Marcus was in his study when she returned. Elena knocked softly. "Come in." He was reviewing ledgers, a glass of whiskey, at his elbow. He didn't look up. "How was the dressmaker?" "Fine. I ordered 3 new gowns." "Good. Make sure they're appropriate, nothing too flashy." He made a notation in the ledger. "We're attending the Berkshire dinner party next week. I expect you to behave." "Of course." Elena turned to leave. "And Elena?" She stopped. "No more incidents like the ball. No dancing with dukes. No making me look foolish." His voice was calm, almost pleasant. "Or I'll make sure you regret it. Understood?" "Understood." She left before he could see her hands shaking. The next week passed in a blur of normalcy that felt like walking on glass. Elena played the dutiful wife, attended social functions at Marcus's side, smiled at the right people, and said the right things. She went to 2 more secret meetings with Morrison, smuggling out the pages she'd written and providing names of servants who might testify. Mrs. Crawford was first. "I've seen the bruises," the housekeeper said quietly when Elena asked. "I've heard the shouting. If you're finally doing something about it, my lady, I'll help however I can." Thomas the driver was next, surprisingly. I don't like how he treats you, he admitted, looking uncomfortable. It ain't right hitting a woman. I'll say what I've seen if it helps. Even Catherine's lady's maid offered information. Apparently, Catherine bragged about her affair openly to the servants, confident they wouldn't talk. They would talk now. Morrison was pleased. We're building something here. Your husband won't know what hit him. But keeping up the pretense was exhausting. Elena felt like she was splitting in two, the obedient wife who flinched when Marcus raised his voice, and the woman planning his destruction in secret. Sometimes she forgot which one she was supposed to be. The breaking point came on Thursday night. Marcus came home drunk, Catherine hanging off his arm. Elena was in the drawing room reading. She looked up when they entered. Get out, Marcus slurred. We're using this room. Elena stood, closing her book. Of course. She was halfway to the door when Catherine spoke. Wait. The younger woman's smile was vicious. I want her to stay. Marcus laughed. Catherine, I'm serious. She should see what a real woman does. Maybe she'll learn something. Elena's stomach turned. I said stay. Catherine's voice hardened. Or I'll tell Marcus about your little shopping trips. The ones where you disappear for an hour and come back without any packages. The room went cold. Marcus's head snapped up, suddenly much more sober. What shopping trips? Nothing, Elena said quickly. I don't know what she's... Last Tuesday, Catherine interrupted. You told Thomas you were at the dressmaker, but you were only there 20 minutes. Where did you go for the other 40? Elena's mind raced. Catherine had been having her followed, or Thomas had talked. Either way, she was trapped. I walked, Elena said, fighting to keep her voice steady. I needed air. Liar. Catherine moved closer, circling like a predator. You went somewhere. Met someone, maybe? That's ridiculous. Marcus grabbed Elena's arm, yanking her close. Where did you go? I told you, I walked. Don't lie to me. His grip tightened, the same bruises from before screaming under his fingers. Where did you go? A bookshop, Elena gasped out. I went to a bookshop. That's all. Which one? I don't remember the name. Convenient. Marcus shoved her away, and Elena stumbled, catching herself on a chair. You expect me to believe you just wandered into a random bookshop and forgot the name? I wasn't paying attention. Because you were meeting someone. Catherine's smile widened. The Duke, perhaps? Planning another little dance? No. But Marcus's expression had gone dark and dangerous. Search her, he told Catherine. Now. Catherine moved fast, grabbing Elena's arms and pinning them while Marcus went through her pockets. He found nothing. Elena had learned to hide things better, but that only made him angrier. Upstairs, he ordered. Your room. I'm searching everything. Marcus, please, move! They marched her upstairs, Catherine holding one arm, Marcus the other. Elena's mind spun frantically. The jewelry box. The hidden compartment. If Marcus found it, if he found the pages she'd written, Morrison's card. They threw her into her room. Marcus went straight for the dresser, pulling out drawers and dumping their contents. Catherine searched the wardrobe, ripping gowns off hangers. There's nothing here, Elena said desperately. I'm telling you, there's nothing. Marcus reached the jewelry box. Elena's heart stopped. He opened it roughly, spilling pearls and emeralds across the floor. His hands plunged into the interior, feeling around. He found the seam. What's this? Marcus's fingers pried at the hidden compartment. The false bottom popped open. Pages spilled out, dozens of them. Elena's handwriting covering every inch. Marcus picked up the top sheet and read. His face went white, then purple. My husband hit me, he read aloud, his voice shaking with rage. Left bruises on my arms. This is the 3rd time this month. He looked up at Elena. You've been documenting. Elena backed toward the door. Marcus, you've been building a case against me. He advanced on her, the pages crumpled in his fist. Planning to leave, to humiliate me in court. I wasn't... Don't lie! He was screaming now, spittle flying. You scheming, ungrateful. His hand went to his belt. Catherine's eyes widened. Marcus, maybe we should. Get out, Marcus said without looking at her. But I said get out. Catherine fled, the door slamming behind her. Elena was alone with her husband, and the look in his eyes said he was going to kill her. 5 years, Marcus said quietly, pulling the belt free. 5 years, I've given you everything. A home, a name, security. And this is how you repay me? Marcus, please, on your knees. What? I said on your knees. He grabbed her hair, forcing her down. You want to act like a disobedient dog. I'll treat you like one. The belt came down across her back. Elena screamed, pain exploding through her spine. It came down again. Again. She tried to curl into a ball, but Marcus kept yanking her upright by her hair, kept hitting her. You are my wife, each word punctuated with the belt. My property. You don't get to leave. You don't get to plot against me. You don't get to... The window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the floor. A figure rolled through the opening, came up in a crouch. Ronan. Marcus froze, belt raised. What the hell? Ronan moved like violence given form. He crossed the room in 3 strides and his fist connected with Marcus's jaw with a crack that echoed. Marcus went down hard, blood spraying from his mouth. You don't touch her, Ronan said, his voice cold as death. Ever again. Marcus spat blood, trying to stand. This is my house. Ronan kicked him in the ribs. Marcus crumpled, gasping. I don't care if it's Buckingham Palace. You put your hands on her again and I'll kill you. Ronan's boot pressed down on Marcus's chest. Slowly. Elena was shaking, pain radiating from her back, her hair torn loose from where Marcus had grabbed it. Ronan looked at her and something cracked in his expression. Can you stand? His voice gentled. Elena nodded, using the bed to pull herself up. Every movement was agony. Ronan turned back to Marcus. Here's what's going to happen. Lady Whitford is leaving. Tonight. You're going to let her. Like hell. Ronan's boot pressed harder and Marcus wheezed. You're going to let her, Ronan repeated. Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure every person in London knows what you are. A coward who beats his wife. A man drowning in gambling debts he can't pay. A pathetic little worm who needs to hurt women to feel powerful. You can't prove, I can prove all of it. Ronan leaned down, his voice dropping to something deadly. I own your debts, Whitford. Every pound you owe to the gambling halls, the moneylenders, the men you've been hiding from, it's all mine now, and I can call them due anytime I want. Marcus's face went gray. That's not possible. It's already done. You're mine. And right now, the only thing keeping me from destroying you completely is the fact that she's watching. Ronan's eyes cut to Elena. So you're going to lie there and be very, very quiet while I take her out of this house. And if you try to stop us, if you come after her, if you so much as breathe her name in public, I will ruin you so thoroughly they'll forget you ever existed. You bastard! Ronan's fist came down again and Marcus stopped talking. Ronan straightened and crossed to Elena, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Can you walk? I think so. We need to move, now, before he recovers enough to cause problems. Elena looked around her room, 5 years of imprisonment in these walls, and felt nothing but relief. I don't need anything from here, she said. Good, because we're not coming back. Ronan helped her to the broken window. Glass crunched under their feet. He went first, dropping to the garden below, then reached up for her. I'll catch you. Elena didn't hesitate. She jumped. He caught her like he'd promised, setting her down gently. Pain shot through her back, but she bit down on the scream. Behind them, they heard Marcus shouting for servants. Run, Ronan said. They ran. Through the garden, over the back fence, into the alley beyond. A carriage waited there, dark and unmarked. Ronan threw open the door and helped Elena inside before climbing in after her. Go! He shouted to the driver. The carriage lurched forward, wheels clattering on cobblestones. Elena collapsed against the seat, shaking, her back on fire. Ronan was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Let me see, he said quietly. What? You're back. Let me see how bad it is. Elena turned slowly, hissing in pain. She felt Ronan's fingers on the buttons of her dress, gentle and careful. Cool air hit her skin as he peeled back the fabric. His sharp intake of breath told her everything. That bastard. Ronan's voice was rough. I should have hit him harder. Where are we going? Elena asked, not wanting to think about what her back must look like. My townhouse. You'll be safe there. Marcus will come for me. Let him try. Ronan helped her pull the dress back up. I have men watching your house. If he leaves, I'll know. And if he tries anything stupid, I'll make good on my threats. Elena leaned her head back, exhausted and hurting and terrified and free all at once. This is really happening, she whispered. Yes. He's going to destroy me for this. No. Ronan's hand found hers in the darkness. He's not, because I'm going to destroy him first. The carriage rolled on through London's dark streets, carrying Elena away from the only life she'd known, toward something uncertain and dangerous, and maybe, possibly, better. Behind them, Marcus Whitford stood in his broken house, blood on his face and rage in his heart, already planning his revenge. The war had begun, and only one of them would survive it. Ronan's townhouse was nothing like Whitford Manor, where Marcus's home had been all dark wood and heavy curtains designed to intimidate. Ronan's space was surprisingly open. Tall windows, clean lines, books everywhere. A physician was already waiting when they arrived, a severe-looking woman named Dr. Hartwell, who took one look at Elena's back and swore under her breath. Who did this? She asked, laying out instruments on a clean cloth. Her husband, Ronan said flatly. Dr. Hartwell's mouth thinned to a hard line. Of course he did. She turned to Elena. This is going to hurt. I need to clean the welts and apply salve. Can you manage? Elena nodded, too exhausted to speak. It hurt worse than the beating itself. Dr. Hartwell worked efficiently, but not gently. There was no gentle way to treat torn skin. Elena bit down on a leather strap and tried not to scream. Ronan stood by the window, his back to them, but Elena could see the tension in his shoulders. Every time she made a sound, his hands clenched. Done, Dr. Hartwell finally said. The wounds are superficial but numerous. She'll scar, probably. Keep them clean and change the bandages twice daily. She packed up her instruments. And if you see that bastard husband of hers, tell him I said he's got a special place in hell waiting. I'll pass that along, Ronan said. When the doctor left, Elena found herself alone with Ronan for the first time since escaping. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her hollow and shaking. There's a guest room upstairs, Ronan said quietly. My housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, prepared it. You should rest. I can't sleep. Elena's voice cracked. Every time I close my eyes, I see him coming at me with that belt. Ronan turned from the window. Then don't sleep. Sit with me. We'll talk. They ended up in his library, Elena curled in an oversized chair with a blanket around her shoulders, Ronan across from her with a glass of whiskey he didn't drink. How did you know? Elena asked. How did you know to come tonight? I had men watching the house. When they saw Catherine leave in a hurry, looking scared, I knew something was wrong. Ronan's jaw tightened. I should have gotten there sooner. You got there in time. Barely. He set down the untouched whiskey. He found the papers. I know. Which means he knows you've been planning to leave. He knows about Morrison, probably knows I'm involved. Ronan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. He's going to retaliate hard, Elena. Harder than before. I know that too. Elena pulled the blanket tighter. So what do we do? We move faster than planned. Morrison's been building the case, but we need to file before Marcus can mount a proper defense. Ronan's expression was grim. Tomorrow, we go to court. File for legal separation on grounds of cruelty and adultery. Make it public before he can control the narrative. Public. Elena's stomach churned. Everyone will know. All of London will be talking about how your husband beat you and kept a mistress openly. Yes, they'll talk. Ronan's voice gentled. But they'll also see the truth, that you're not the pathetic barren wife he's made you out to be. You're a survivor who finally fought back. What if they don't see it that way? What if they blame me? Some will. Society loves blaming women for men's violence. Ronan stood and crossed to her chair, crouching so they were eye level. But some won't, and those are the ones who matter. We only need enough people to see the truth to make this stick. Elena studied his face, the scar through his eyebrow, the hard line of his jaw, the eyes that had seen too much violence. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked. "And don't tell me it's just about your sister. There's something else." Ronan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "My father was like Marcus. Controlled everything, hurt everyone, made my mother's life a living hell. I was 14 when she finally tried to leave." He paused. "He killed her before the carriage made it out of the drive, shot her in front of me and my sister. Then he told the authorities it was an accident during a robbery." Elena's breath caught. "I spent the next 10 years learning how to destroy men like him, building power, connections, resources. When my sister married, I thought she'd be safe. Her husband seemed different." Ronan's hands clenched. He wasn't, and by the time I realized it, she was already gone. So yes, it's about my sister, but it's also about every woman who's ever been trapped by a man who thinks ownership means permission to destroy. Elena reached out and took his hand. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry, just fight back. That's all I want." He squeezed her fingers gently. "Show these bastards that women aren't things to be broken and discarded. Show them what happens when one of us finally stops taking it." They sat like that for a while, hands clasped, the fire crackling in the hearth. Outside, London slept, unaware that tomorrow it would wake to scandal. Elena slept in the guest room, fitfully, waking every hour expecting to find Marcus standing over her. But there was only silence and the unfamiliar comfort of clean sheets that didn't smell like fear. Morning came gray and cold. Mrs. Chen brought breakfast Elena couldn't eat and helped her dress in borrowed clothes that didn't press against the bandages. Morrison arrived at 9, carrying a leather case stuffed with documents. "We're ready," he announced. "I have witness statements from Mrs. Crawford, Thomas, 3 other servants, and Catherine's lady's maid. I have the medical report from Dr. Hartwell documenting your injuries, and I have your written accounts, which paint a very clear picture." "What about Marcus?" Elena asked. "Won't he fight this?" "Oh, he'll try, but here's the beautiful part." Morrison smiled grimly. "The Duke has been very busy these past weeks. Your husband's gambling debts? All called due yesterday afternoon. His creditors are demanding immediate payment." Elena looked at Ronan. "How much does he owe?" £40,000. Ronan's expression was neutral. "More than he has liquid. He'll need to sell property to cover it." "But the house, the estates, they're all entailed," Morrison added. "He can't touch them, which means he's about to be financially ruined unless he can negotiate with his creditors." "Who are you?" Elena said slowly. "Who are me?" Ronan's smile was sharp. "I'm willing to forgive the debts, all £40,000, on one condition." "He agrees to the separation without contest," Elena breathed. "Exactly. He signs the papers, stays away from you, and I make his financial problems disappear. He fights it, and I destroy him completely." Ronan stood. "We're giving him a choice, but either way, you're getting free." The courthouse was imposing, all stone columns and stern-faced clerks. Morrison led them through the maze of hallways to a private office where a judge named Blackwood waited, a man with white hair and sharp eyes who'd apparently owed Ronan a favor. "This is highly irregular," Judge Blackwood said as he reviewed the documents. "Filing for separation is usually a lengthy process." "The circumstances are extreme, Morrison replied. "Lady Whitford's life is in danger if she returns home. We need an emergency order of protection." Blackwood read through Dr. Hartwell's report, his expression darkening. "These injuries are recent?" "Last night," Elena said quietly. "My husband beat me with his belt when he discovered I was planning to leave." "And you have witnesses to the pattern of abuse?" 5 servants willing to testify, plus documentation of his affair with Lady Catherine Pembroke, conducted openly for 3 years. Blackwood set down the papers. "Lord Whitford is aware you're filing?" "Not yet," Ronan said. "We wanted the protection order in place first." "Smart." Blackwood pulled out a pen. I'm granting the emergency order. Lady Whitford, you are not to return to the marital home. Lord Whitford is not to contact you or come within 100 yards of your person. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. He signed with a flourish. The separation hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from today. Be prepared for a fight. They left the courthouse with the signed order, and Elena felt something shift inside her chest. It was real. She'd actually done it. Now what, Isham? She asked. Now we deliver the news to your husband, Morrison said, along with the Duke's offer regarding his debts. See which he values more, his pride or his fortune. They sent a messenger to Whitford Manor requesting Marcus's presence at Morrison's office at 3 o'clock. He arrived at 4, his face bruised from where Ronan had hit him, Catherine trailing behind like a nervous shadow. What the hell is this about? Marcus demanded, shoving past the clerk into Morrison's office. You can't just summon me like... He stopped when he saw Elena sitting beside Ronan, very much not cowering. You. Marcus's face went purple. You ran away. You actually... Sit down, Lord Whitford, Morrison said calmly. We have matters to discuss. I'm not sitting anywhere until she comes home. Lady Whitford is not going home, Morrison interrupted. She's filed for legal separation on grounds of cruelty and adultery. The court has granted an emergency protection order. You're not to contact her or approach her. Here's your copy. He slid the document across the desk. Marcus snatched it up, reading, his face going from purple to white. This is insane. You can't... She's my wife. Was your wife? Elena said, finding her voice. I'm not your property anymore, Marcus. I'm done. You ungrateful... Marcus lunged forward, but Ronan stood, blocking his path. Sit. Down. Ronan's voice could have frozen fire. Marcus sat, but his eyes were murderous. Catherine hovered by the door, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. Now, Morrison continued, there's the matter of your debts. £40,000 owed to various creditors, all of which the Duke has acquired. He's prepared to forgive the entire sum on one condition. Marcus's jaw worked. What condition? You agree to the separation, sign the papers without contest, stay away from Lady Whitford permanently. Morrison laid out another document. Do this, and the Duke tears up your debts. Fight it, and he calls them due immediately. Your choice. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a way out, Ronan corrected. Take it or don't. But if you fight this, I will make it my personal mission to destroy everything you've ever built. Your reputation, your fortune, your name, all of it, gone. Marcus looked at Elena, his expression twisted with rage and something that might have been betrayal. 5 years, he said. 5 years I gave you everything. You gave me nothing but pain, Elena interrupted. Her voice was steady now, strong. You beat me. You humiliated me. You made me feel worthless every single day. So yes, I'm leaving. And you can sign those papers willingly, or I can drag you through court and make sure all of London knows exactly what kind of man you are. Your choice. The silence stretched. Catherine shifted nervously. Marcus, darling, maybe you should... Shut up, Marcus snapped. He stared at the papers, his hands shaking. If I sign this, what happens to the house? The properties? They remain yours, Morrison said. We're not seeking financial compensation beyond what's legally required for Lady Whitford's support. She just wants her freedom. Marcus's pen hovered over the document. Elena held her breath. I want it in writing, Marcus said finally, that she gets nothing beyond basic support, that she can't come back later demanding more. Already in the agreement, Morrison pointed to a clause. Marcus read it 3 times, looking for tricks. Finally, his hand moved. The scratch of pen on paper sounded like chains breaking. He signed. Then he threw the pen across the room and stood so violently his chair fell over. You'll regret this, he snarled at Elena. Both of you. Society will tear you apart for this. They'll call you a whore, a homewrecker. Let them, Elena said quietly. I'd rather be called names than spend another day in your house. Marcus stormed out, Catherine scrambling after him. They heard his carriage pull away at speed. Morrison gathered the signed documents with evident satisfaction. Well, that went better than expected. Elena couldn't breathe properly. She'd done it, actually done it. Marcus had signed. She was free. "Are you all right?" Ronan asked quietly. "I don't know," Elena laughed, the sound shaky. "I think so. Is it really over?" "The marriage part is. There's still the court hearing to formalize everything, and Marcus might try to cause problems between now and then." Ronan's hand found hers. "But the hard part, the escape, that's done. You're out." Elena closed her eyes. Free. The word felt foreign. Impossible. That night, news of the separation began spreading through London like wildfire. By morning, it was the only thing anyone was talking about. Lady Berkshire showed up at Ronan's townhouse unannounced, demanding to see Elena. Mrs. Chen tried to turn her away, but the older woman was insistent. "5 minutes," Lady Berkshire said when Elena finally appeared. "That's all I'm asking." They sat in the drawing room, tea neither of them would drink steaming between them. "I came to say I believe you," Lady Berkshire said without preamble. "About Marcus. About what he did." Elena blinked, surprised. "You do?" "My first husband was similar. Not as bad, perhaps, but..." Lady Berkshire's voice tightened. "I know what it looks like. The fear in your eyes at parties. The way you made yourself small. I saw it because I lived it. I didn't know. No one did. That's the point." Lady Berkshire leaned forward. "There are others like us, Elena. Women who've survived men who think marriage is ownership. We're organizing a response to the gossip, letters to the papers, testimonials, pressure on the courts to take your case seriously." Elena's throat tightened. "Why would you do that?" "Because someone should have done it for me 20 years ago." Lady Berkshire's eyes were fierce. "And because I'm tired of watching women suffer in silence while men like Marcus get away with it. So you're not alone in this. Whatever happens at that hearing, you'll have witnesses, supporters, people willing to speak truth to power." She left Elena with a list of names, 15 women, all titled, all willing to testify to Marcus's character or speak publicly about their own experiences. Ronan found Elena crying over the list an hour later. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Elena wiped her eyes. "Everything's right. For the first time in 5 years, something is actually right." The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Morrison drilled Elena on what to expect at the hearing, how to answer questions, what to wear to appear sympathetic but not weak. Dr. Hartwell documented the healing of Elena's injuries with photographs. New technology that made Elena uncomfortable, but Morrison insisted would be powerful evidence. And Ronan was there through all of it, a steady presence that asked nothing but gave everything. "You don't have to do this," Elena told him one evening. They were in his library again, the place that had become their refuge. "Defend me so publicly. It's costing you socially. I don't care about society's opinion." "Yes, you do. Everyone does." Elena set down her tea. "People are calling you my lover, saying you broke up my marriage." "Let them talk." "Ronan." "Elena." He crossed to her chair, crouching like he had that first night. "I don't care what they say about me. The only thing I care about is making sure you get through this alive and free. Everything else is noise." "Why?" The question came out broken. "Why do you care so much?" Ronan was quiet for a long moment, his hand coming up to cup her face gently. "Because when I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for," he said simply. "And maybe I see a chance to do it right this time, to save someone instead of losing them." Elena turned her face into his palm, tears spilling over. "I'm not your sister. You can't save her by saving me." "I know." Ronan's thumb brushed away her tears. "But I can try to make sure her death meant something, that the next woman in your position doesn't have to suffer alone." They stayed like that until the fire burned low, two broken people trying to build something whole from the wreckage. The hearing date arrived cold and gray. The courthouse steps were packed with people, reporters, curiosity seekers, society women who'd come to support Elena or condemn her. Marcus was already inside with his barrister, an expensive man named Thornton, who'd built his career defending the indefensible. "Ready?" Morrison asked. Elena straightened her spine, ignoring the phantom ache of healed wounds. "Ready." The courtroom was smaller than she'd expected, wood-paneled and formal. Judge Blackwood presided, his expression neutral. Marcus sat at the defendant's table, pointedly not looking at her. Thornton stood first. "Your Honor, this entire proceeding is a sham designed to extort money from my client. Lady Whitford is a bitter, barren woman who couldn't fulfill her wifely duties and now seeks revenge through false accusations." "Objection," Morrison said calmly. "Counsel is testifying rather than arguing." "Sustained. Mr. Thornton, stick to facts." Thornton shifted tactics. "The facts are simple. Lady Whitford abandoned the marital home without cause, taking up residence with the Duke of Hale, a man she was seen dancing with inappropriately weeks before. This suggests an affair, not abuse." Morrison stood. "We have medical evidence of abuse. Photographs taken by Dr. Hartwell, documenting extensive injuries consistent with beating. We have sworn testimony from 5 servants describing a pattern of violence spanning 5 years. And we have Lady Whitford's own account, corroborated in every detail." "We have a wife who wants to leave her marriage and a powerful lover willing to manufacture evidence," Thornton countered. "Then let's hear from the wife herself," Judge Blackwood said. "Lady Whitford, please take the stand." Elena stood on shaking legs and crossed to the witness box. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Morrison approached gently. "Lady Whitford, how long were you married to Lord Whitford?" 5 years. "And during that time, did he ever strike you?" Elena took a breath. "Yes, many times." "Can you describe the first incident?" So Elena told them. All of it. The separate bedrooms from the beginning. The mistress paraded openly. The first time Marcus had hit her, 6 months into the marriage, a backhand across the face because she'd questioned where he was spending his evenings. The way it had escalated from there. She told them about the belt, the bruises, the threats. She told them about being locked in her room for days, about having her correspondence read, about being told she was worthless because she couldn't conceive. She told them everything while Marcus sat there, his face stone, and London listened. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Thornton stood for cross-examination, but his bluster had faded. "Lady Whitford, isn't it true you were seen dancing with the Duke before you left your husband?" "Yes." "And isn't it true you've been living in his home since leaving?" "Yes." "So you expect this court to believe there's no romantic involvement?" Elena met his eyes. "I expect this court to believe that when a woman is being beaten by her husband and a man offers her safety, she takes it. Whatever society wants to call that relationship is their business. I call it survival." A murmur ran through the gallery. Thornton sat down. Morrison called Mrs. Crawford next, who testified to finding Elena unconscious once after Marcus had thrown her down the stairs. Then Dr. Hartwell, who presented the photographs. Elena's back, a mess of welts and broken skin. The gallery gasped. Even Judge Blackwood flinched. Finally, Morrison stood. "Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. Lady Whitford has endured years of systematic abuse at the hands of her husband. She has every right to seek legal separation and protection from further harm. We ask the court to grant the separation and make the protection order permanent." Judge Blackwood didn't deliberate long. "I've seen enough," he said. "The evidence of cruelty is substantial and corroborated. The separation is granted. Lord Whitford, you are ordered to stay away from Lady Whitford permanently. You will provide annual support of £300, significantly less than she's entitled to, but per the signed agreement, that's what she requested. This court is adjourned." The gavel came down. Elena couldn't move. It was over. Actually, over. She was free. The gallery erupted, some cheering, some scandalized, everyone talking at once. Elena felt Ronan's hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. "You did it," he said quietly. "We did it." Elena turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "I couldn't have done this without you." Outside, the courthouse steps were chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Society women pressed forward, some to congratulate Elena, others to hiss insults. Lady Berkshire appeared with her coalition, forming a protective wall around Elena as they navigated to the carriage. Marcus emerged from a side door, his face murderous. He started toward Elena, but Ronan stepped into his path. "Don't," Ronan said simply. Something in his tone made Marcus stop. For a long moment they stared at each other, the abuser and the protector. And then Marcus turned and walked away. He'd lost. And he knew it. The carriage ride back to Ronan's townhouse felt surreal. Elena kept expecting to wake up, to find herself back in that cold bedroom at Whitford Manor. But she didn't wake up. This was real. She was free. That night, London's papers ran the story with headlines like "Society Wife Wins Freedom" and "Duke Defends Battered Woman." The scandal would rage for weeks, Elena knew. Some would always believe she was a scheming adulteress. Some would always defend Marcus. But some, enough, had seen the truth. And that was enough. Elena stood by the window of Ronan's library, watching the city lights, and felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Hope. The door opened behind her. Ronan entered quietly, carrying 2 glasses of wine. "The reporters are finally leaving," he said, handing her one. Mrs. Chen threatened to release the dogs. Elena laughed, the sound strange and wonderful. "Does she actually have dogs?" "No, but they don't know that." Ronan joined her at the window. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified, relieved, angry, free." Elena shook her head. "Everything at once." "That sounds about right." They stood in comfortable silence, watching London together. "What happens now?" Elena asked finally. "Now you heal. You figure out who you are outside of that marriage." Ronan's voice was soft. "You build a life that's yours. And you? I'll be here, as long as you need me." Elena turned to look at him, this dangerous man who'd crashed through her window and changed everything. "What if I always need you?" she whispered. Ronan's expression shifted, something warm and unexpected breaking through his usual control. "Then I guess you're stuck with me," he said simply. He kissed her then, gentle and careful, like she was something precious that might break. Elena kissed him back, tasting freedom and possibility and the beginning of something that might actually be good. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Ronan rested his forehead against hers. "We should probably talk about what this means," he said. "Tomorrow." Elena smiled. "Tonight, I just want to stand here and remember what it feels like to make my own choices." "Fair enough." So they stood together as London glittered below, 2 survivors finding something like peace in the wreckage. The war wasn't over. Marcus would lick his wounds and plot revenge. Society would whisper and judge. There would be hard days ahead. But tonight, Elena Whitford was free. And that was everything. Tomorrow came faster than Elena expected, bringing with it a problem she hadn't anticipated. Marcus wasn't done fighting. The morning papers arrived with breakfast, and Mrs. Chen's expression when she brought them told Elena everything. She unfolded the Times with shaking hands and read the headline. "Duke's Mistress, the truth behind Lady Whitford's lies." The article was vicious. Anonymous sources, clearly Marcus or his allies, claimed Elena had been conducting an affair with Ronan for months before leaving, that the abuse allegations were fabricated to cover her adultery, that she'd seduced the Duke specifically to secure protection and financing for her escape. "It's rubbish," Ronan said flatly, reading over her shoulder. "No one will believe it." "They already do." Elena pointed to another paper, then another. The story was everywhere, each version more salacious than the last. "Marcus is turning this around, making me the villain." "Let him try. We have the court ruling." "The court ruling means nothing if society decides I'm a lying whore." Elena's hands trembled. "He's going to destroy my reputation so thoroughly that even winning the separation won't matter. I'll be ruined." Ronan's jaw tightened. "Then we fight back. Morrison can't fix this." Elena stood, pacing. "This isn't a legal battle anymore. It's a social one, and in that arena, Marcus has all the weapons." A knock interrupted them. Mrs. Chen appeared, looking worried. "Lady Berkshire is here, and she's brought others." Elena found her drawing room filled with women. 15 of them, the same ones from Lady Berkshire's list, all dressed for battle in their finest gowns. "We saw the papers," Lady Berkshire announced without preamble, and we're here to make sure Marcus Whitford regrets every word." "How?" Elena asked. "By telling our stories publicly." An older woman stepped forward, Viscountess Ashford, one of the most respected women in London society. "I survived a violent marriage 30 years ago. No one helped me then. No one spoke up. I won't let that happen to you." One by one, they shared their plans. Lady Berkshire had already written to every major paper demanding they print corrections. Viscountess Ashford was hosting a tea where she'd discuss her own experiences with abuse. Others were leveraging their social connections, spreading the truth through the networks Marcus couldn't touch. "But the most important thing," Lady Berkshire said, "is that you don't hide. You show your face. You go to events, hold your head high, and remind everyone that you're not ashamed because you've done nothing wrong." "They'll tear me apart," Elena whispered. "Some will try." Viscountess Ashford's smile was sharp, "And we'll be there to tear them apart right back." The first test came that evening. Lord Hammond was hosting a charity gala, and Lady Berkshire insisted Elena attend. "I can't," Elena said. "It's too soon." "It's perfect timing." Lady Berkshire was already in Elena's room, pulling out gowns Mrs. Chen had procured. Hammond's gala is the most important event of the season. If you show up and survive it, you win. If you hide, Marcus wins. Ronan appeared in the doorway. "She doesn't have to do this." "Yes, she does." Lady Berkshire held up a deep emerald gown. "Unless she wants to spend the rest of her life hiding. Is that what you want, dear?" Elena looked at herself in the mirror, scared, scarred, but alive. "No," she said quietly. "I'm done hiding." The gown was beautiful, cut to show strength rather than seduce. Elena's hair was styled simply, her jewelry minimal. When she descended the stairs, Ronan's expression shifted to something Elena couldn't quite read. "You look—" He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. "You look like someone they should be afraid of." "Good." Elena took his offered arm. "Because I'm terrified, and if I look dangerous, maybe they won't notice." The carriage ride to Hammond's estate felt like riding toward execution. Elena's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Ronan covered them with his own. "We can turn around," he said quietly. "You don't owe anyone this performance. I owe myself." Elena met his eyes. "I spent 5 years being invisible. I'm not doing it anymore." The entrance to Hammond's ballroom was designed for dramatic arrivals, a grand staircase where guests were announced before descending. Elena stood at the top, Ronan beside her, and felt every eye in the room lock onto her. The whispers started immediately. "That's her. The Duke's mistress. Nerve? Showing her face. Lady Elena Whitford," the announcer called out, his voice carrying. "And His Grace, the Duke of Hale." Elena descended. Each step felt like walking through fire. She could see people turning away, refusing to acknowledge her. Could see the sneers, the judgment. But she could also see Lady Berkshire at the bottom of the stairs, chin high and defiant. Could see Viscountess Ashford gathering her allies. Could see women she'd never met watching her with something that looked like hope. Halfway down, Elena stumbled. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see her fall. Ronan steadied her without breaking stride. "I've got you," he murmured. They reached the bottom. Lady Berkshire swept forward immediately, taking Elena's other arm. "There you are, dear. Come, I want to introduce you to some people who are dying to meet you." She led Elena through the crowd like a general leading troops through enemy territory. Some people turned their backs. Others whispered behind fans. But enough, just enough, nodded in acknowledgement. Then Elena saw him. Marcus stood near the refreshment table, Catherine beside him, both dressed like nothing had changed. He was holding court with a group of young men, probably spreading more lies about Elena's character. Their eyes met across the room. Marcus's expression twisted with rage. He started toward her, shouldering through the crowd. "Here we go," Lady Berkshire muttered. "Remember, you've done nothing wrong." Marcus reached them, his face flushed with drink or anger or both. "You have some nerve." "Lord Whitford." Judge Blackwood appeared from nowhere, his presence stopping Marcus cold. "I believe the court order specifies you're to stay away from Lady Whitford. Or have you forgotten already? Marcus's mouth worked, but no sound came out. I suggest you remember, Blackwood continued, his voice carrying to nearby listeners. Violating a court order in front of witnesses would be remarkably stupid, even for you. Marcus turned on his heel and stormed away, Catherine scurrying after. The crowd that had been watching murmured amongst themselves. Well done, Your Honor, Lady Berkshire said approvingly. Blackwood nodded to Elena. Lady Whitford, you're braver than most for coming tonight. I'm not brave, Elena said quietly. I'm just tired of being afraid. Same thing, in my experience. Blackwood moved on, but his public support had shifted something in the room. People who'd been ignoring Elena were now glancing over, reassessing. The evening crawled by. Elena danced once with Ronan, then with Lord Hammond himself, a statement of support from their host that sent ripples through the gossip networks. She endured questions from the curious, sneers from Marcus's supporters, and through it all, she didn't run. She stood her ground. By the time they left, near midnight, Elena was exhausted, but something had changed. She'd survived. More than that, she'd shown them she wasn't ashamed. You did well, Ronan said in the carriage. I didn't do anything, just stood there while people judged me. You stood there. That's everything. His hand found hers. Most people would have hidden. You chose to be visible. That takes more courage than you think. The next morning brought more papers, but the tone had shifted. Several ran stories about the women who'd come forward with their own abuse experiences. Lady Berkshire's coalition was making noise, and society was starting to listen. Not everyone. Marcus's allies still circulated vicious rumors. But enough people were questioning the narrative that Elena wasn't completely ruined. It was progress. Painful, slow progress. 2 weeks later, Morrison appeared at breakfast with news. Marcus is in financial trouble. Real trouble. The debts the Duke forgave? There are others, newer ones. He's been gambling heavily since the separation, losing badly. Morrison set down documents. He's trying to break the entail on Whitford Manor, wants to sell it to cover his losses. Can he do that? Elena asked. Not legally, but he's attempting it anyway, which suggests desperation. Morrison's expression was grim. Desperate men do stupid things. Be careful. That night, Elena woke to the smell of smoke. She sat up in bed, heart pounding. Smoke was curling under her door, thick and dark. Elena grabbed her robe and ran to the door, touching it carefully. Hot. The fire was close. She ran to the window instead, threw it open and screamed for help. Ronan burst into the hallway outside her room. Elena! I'm here! The door's too hot! The window! Can you reach the trellis? Elena looked down. The garden trellis was there, the same one she'd climbed down to meet Ronan that night weeks ago. But smoke was pouring from the windows below now. The whole house was burning. She climbed out anyway, her bare feet finding purchase on the ancient wood. The trellis creaked ominously. Smoke burned her lungs. She climbed down as fast as she dared, and when she was close enough, Ronan reached up and pulled her down. Are you hurt? No, I'm... Elena's eyes widened. Mrs. Chen! The staff... Already out. Everyone's accounted for. Ronan pulled her away from the burning building. Everyone but the bastard who started this. They watched from the street as Ronan's townhouse burned. Fire crews arrived, but it was too late. The building was engulfed. Everything inside was gone. Elena's borrowed clothes, the books, the safety she'd found there. Gone. A figure detached from the shadows across the street. Marcus, his face illuminated by the flames, smiling. You took my house, he called out. Seemed fair to return the favor. Ronan moved before Elena could stop him. He crossed the street in long strides, and his fist connected with Marcus's jaw so hard, Elena heard the crack from where she stood. Marcus went down. Ronan didn't stop. He grabbed Marcus by the collar and hit him again and again. You could have killed her. Each word punctuated with violence. You could have killed everyone in that house. Police whistles sounded. Officers came running, pulling Ronan off Marcus's bloodied form. He started the fire, Ronan was shouting, fighting against the hands restraining him. He tried to murder her. That's a serious accusation, Your Grace, the lead officer said. Do you have proof? They didn't. Marcus had been careful. No witnesses, no evidence. Just a man watching from across the street who could claim he'd come to help when he saw the flames. Marcus smiled through his broken teeth. I was just passing by. Officer, saw the fire and stopped to watch. Terrible tragedy. You're lying, Elena said, stepping forward. You did this because you can't stand that I got away from you. Prove it. Marcus's smile widened. Go ahead. Prove I did anything. You can't. Just like you can't prove half the things you claimed in court. The officer looked between them, clearly out of his depth. Perhaps everyone should calm down. Calm down? Ronan's voice was cold fury. He just committed arson and attempted murder. I was across the street when the fire started, Marcus said smoothly. Multiple witnesses can confirm I arrived after the flames were already visible. I've done nothing wrong. It was a stalemate, no proof, no evidence, just accusations that would go nowhere. Marcus knew it. His smile was victory itself. I'll see you in hell, Elena, he said pleasantly. And your lover too. He walked away, the police letting him go because they had no grounds to hold him. Elena stood in the street, watching her tormentor disappear into the night, and felt something inside her snap. He's not going to stop, she said quietly. He's going to keep doing this until one of us is dead. I know. Ronan's hands were still shaking with rage. But we can't. Can't what? Can't fight back? Can't match his violence. Elena turned to face him. He burned down your house, Ronan. He tried to kill me. How much more are we supposed to take? I don't know. And for the first time since she'd met him, Ronan looked lost. I don't know. They spent that night in a hotel, Elena unable to sleep, staring at the ceiling and thinking. Marcus had escalated beyond legal consequences, beyond social pressure. He'd moved into pure destruction, and he'd keep escalating until someone stopped him permanently. The question was how. The answer came from an unexpected source. Catherine appeared at their hotel room the next morning, her face bruised, her dress torn. I need to speak with Lady Whitford, she told the clerk. Elena came down to find Catherine in the lobby, looking nothing like the confident mistress who'd paraded through ballrooms on Marcus's arm. She looked terrified. What happened to you, Elena asked. Marcus. After the fire, after you escaped, he blamed me for not finishing the job. Catherine's hand went to her swollen eye. Said I should have made sure you were trapped inside. Elena's blood ran cold. You helped him start the fire? No, I didn't know what he was planning. I swear. Catherine's voice broke. I thought he just wanted to scare you, but he's out of control. He's planning something worse, and I won't be part of it anymore. Why should I believe you? Because I have proof. Catherine pulled papers from her bag with shaking hands. Letters. Marcus wrote to someone about hiring men to make you disappear, permanently. I found them in his study. Elena took the letters, her stomach churning as she read. Marcus's handwriting, discussing payment for removing the problem and making it look like an accident. This is evidence of conspiracy to commit murder, Elena breathed. I know. Catherine's eyes were red. I knew what Marcus was. I thought I could handle it, thought I could use him for what I needed and walk away. But he's insane, Elena, truly insane. And he'll kill you if someone doesn't stop him. Elena looked at the broken woman in front of her. What do you want from me? Nothing. I don't want your blood on my hands. Catherine stood. Give those letters to the police or to the Duke. Stop Marcus before he kills someone. She left before Elena could respond. Ronan read the letters with an expression that could have curdled milk. This is it, he said quietly. This is how we end him. Morrison agreed. They brought the letters to the police, to Judge Blackwood, to everyone who'd listen. Marcus was arrested within hours, charged with arson and conspiracy to commit murder. The trial was swift and brutal. Catherine testified against him, detailing years of manipulation and recent violence. The men Marcus had hired were found and arrested, turning on him immediately to save themselves. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus fought until the end, screaming about conspiracies and lies. But the jury didn't care. They saw a man who'd beaten his wife, burned down a house, and tried to have someone murdered. They found him guilty on all counts. The sentencing was public. Elena attended, sitting in the gallery with Ronan beside her and Lady Berkshire's coalition surrounding her like armor. Judge Blackwood's voice was grave. Lord Marcus Whitford, you have been found guilty of arson, conspiracy to commit murder, and multiple counts of assault. The evidence against you is overwhelming and damning. You are a danger to society and particularly to your estranged wife, Lady Whitford. Marcus stood in chains, his face haggard, his clothes rumpled. The powerful lord who'd controlled Elena's life for 5 years looked small and pathetic now. I sentence you to 20 years hard labor, Blackwood continued. You will serve this sentence in full, with no possibility of early release. Furthermore, all your properties and assets are to be forfeit to cover the damages you've caused. You will leave this courtroom with nothing but the clothes on your back and the consequences of your actions. Marcus's face crumpled. You can't. My house, my fortune. Should have thought of that before you tried to murder someone. Blackwood's gavel came down. Take him away. They dragged Marcus out, still screaming about injustice. Elena watched him go and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief. Just exhaustion. It was over. Actually, truly over. The courtroom emptied slowly. Ronan took Elena's hand. How do you feel? He asked quietly. Empty. Elena's voice was hollow. I thought I'd feel different, triumphant or something, but I just feel tired. That's normal. Healing isn't instant. Ronan squeezed her hand. Give it time. Time passed. Weeks became months. Spring arrived, bringing warmth and new growth to London's grey streets. Elena moved into a small house Ronan helped her purchase with the settlement money from Marcus's forfeited estate. Not large, not grand, but hers. Every piece of furniture she chose, every curtain she hung, every decision she made without asking permission first. The scandal faded, as scandals always did. New gossip replaced old. People found other things to whisper about. Lady Berkshire's coalition continued their work, helping other women escape violent marriages. Elena joined them, sharing her story with women who needed to hear that escape was possible. And Ronan was there, not demanding, not pushing, just present. He rebuilt his townhouse and invited Elena to dinners that turned into long conversations that turned into something neither of them had planned, but both wanted. 6 months after Marcus's sentencing, Elena hosted her first dinner party. Small, intimate, Lady Berkshire, Viscountess Ashford, Morrison, Judge Blackwood, and Ronan. To new beginnings, Lady Berkshire toasted. To women who refuse to disappear, Viscountess Ashford added. Elena raised her glass, looking around the table at the people who'd helped save her life. To surviving, she said quietly, and to living after. They drank to that. Later, after the guests had left, Ronan helped Elena clear the dishes, a domestic scene that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. You're good at this, Elena observed, watching him dry a plate with unexpected competence. I lived alone for years before hiring staff. You learn. He set down the plate and turned to face her. Elena, I need to ask you something. Her heart kicked. What? Are you happy? Here, now, in this life you're building? Elena considered the question. Was she happy? She still had nightmares sometimes, still flinched at sudden movements, still carried scars Marcus had left, visible and invisible. But she also laughed now, made her own choices, went where she wanted, when she wanted, helped other women find their freedom. I'm getting there, she said honestly. Some days are harder than others, but yes, I think I'm happy. We're learning how to be. Good. Ronan's hand came up to cup her face, gentle as always. Because I love you, and I want to be part of this life you're building, if you'll have me. Elena's breath caught. Ronan, I'm not asking you to marry me, not yet. You've just escaped one cage, I won't build you another. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. But I want you to know that I'm here, for as long as you want me, in whatever capacity you want me. Elena leaned into his touch, tears pricking her eyes. I love you too. You saved my life. No, you saved your life. I just helped you remember you were worth saving. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we live. We build something good. We help others do the same." Ronan smiled. "And we don't let the bastards win." Sounds perfect. 1 year later, Elena stood at the entrance to another ballroom, not as a guest cowering in the shadows, but as the host. She'd used her portion of Marcus's forfeited estate to purchase a building and convert it into a refuge for women escaping violent marriages. Tonight was the fundraising gala to keep it running, and half of London society had shown up. Elena wore deep blue, her head high, her hand resting on Ronan's arm. They descended the stairs together, and this time the applause was genuine. Lady Berkshire met them at the bottom, beaming. "The place looks wonderful, dear. You should be proud." "We should all be proud," Elena corrected. "None of this would exist without all of you." The evening was a triumph. Money poured in from donors. Women approached Elena quietly to thank her, to share their own stories, to ask for help. And in the center of it all, Elena stood tall and visible and alive. Late in the evening, she found a moment alone on the terrace. The night air was cool, the music from inside muffled and distant. Ronan joined her, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "Hiding?" he asked, offering her a glass. "Breathing." Elena took it, smiling. "It's a lot, having everyone's eyes on me. I'm still getting used to it." "You wear it well, the visibility." "I wear it because I have to, because if I hide, other women think they have to hide too." Elena sipped her champagne. "Someone has to stand in the light. Might as well be me." "Might as well be us." Ronan pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. Elena's heart stopped. "Ronan, I know what I said about not asking yet, about giving you time." He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band set with emeralds. "But it's been a year, and I don't want to wait anymore. Not to ask if you'll marry me, not to ask if you'll build this life with me permanently." "Marriage didn't work out so well for me the first time," Elena said, but she was smiling through tears. "Because you married the wrong man. Marry the right one this time." Ronan's voice was rough with emotion. "Marry me. Not because you need protection or security, not because society expects it, but because you want to. Because you love me, and I love you, and we're better together than apart." Elena looked at the ring, then at Ronan, then back at the ballroom full of people she'd helped save and who'd helped save her. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. They kissed on the terrace. While inside, the party continued and London glittered around them, and somewhere in a prison cell, Marcus Whitford rotted alone with his rage. Elena had won, not just her freedom, but her life, her power, her future. She'd been the woman in the shadows, the forgotten wife, the victim everyone pitied. Now she was Elena Whitford Hale, survivor, advocate, and the woman who'd refused to disappear. And when she walked back into that ballroom, hand in hand with the man who'd helped her remember her strength, every eye turned to watch. Not with pity this time, with respect, with recognition, with the understanding that some women don't break when the world tries to destroy them. Some women burn it all down and build something better from the ashes. Elena had built a refuge, a movement, a life worth living. She'd become exactly what Marcus had always feared, a woman with power who knew how to use it. The music swelled. Ronan pulled her onto the dance floor, and they spun through the same steps they'd danced that first night when everything had changed. But this time, Elena wasn't afraid. This time, she was free. And this time, when people watched her dance, they saw not a victim or a scandal or a cautionary tale. They saw a queen who had claimed her throne by refusing to kneel. The ballroom blazed with light, and Elena Whitford Hale stood at the center of it all, finally, completely, triumphantly alive.